That's like going to war. You know, when you get in that foxhole in a war, that's where you bond, right? But I loved it. I loved every moment of it. When I talk about I want to be somebody so bad, it just ate me up inside. I see that in you. There ain't nobody like me. Dadgummit, you're fun to talk to. Tell you what, we gonna get it on here in just a minute. Well, see, to me now, folks, this ain't no candy-ass world. You know, all you gotta do is pee in a bottle, right? Everybody's gotta pee, right? No, I see so many of you just lackadaisical. I mean, you just fiddle-fart around, you know, you're fiddle-farting around. You can't fiddle-fart around and build a dadgum empire, right? 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 So you can't go to work and be smiling and be happy and everything's great and then go home and beat the wife and kids, okay? When you wake up in the morning, you'll kiss your wife goodbye and you'll say, honey, you'll see me at 12 o'clock tonight. I mean, I got so much to do, I ain't got time to wipe my butt. A chicken shit way to do better, I'll tell you that. We got things, we're in Green Berets, we're attacking, we're summer blitzes, we're base racing now, right? Hey, Matt, will you edit that out, please? I mean, I shouldn't say chicken shit. I mean, but it just came out. Because you know what? I believe it's chicken shit, you know? So, Matt, put it back in. Put it back in. You better believe it. I ain't nothing but a dadgum stud, I'll tell you that. So, some of you might say, R. You ain't got no class. You know, I wish, Art, you could learn to eat with your mouth closed, you know? We're in a new era. It's a communications era. There's something out there called an internet, the information highway. Oh, well, you know what? Me and my Mercedes ain't ever been down no information highway. The home office couldn't even supply us with apps to take an application to have a say, right? We didn't have enough rate cards. We didn't have shit. Okay, you understand that? Ain't that something? That don't G-haul too well with people out there, right?
Don't that blow your butt out of dadgum water? I just can't stand all this stuff. This is fun.
You know what? You know what?
You know what?
You know what?
You know what? Y'all sit down.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we got a lot. Y'all sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey. Thank you, and welcome to Highlands. And isn't this weather fantastic up here? And we got some people from England, Jeff, and a group of people from England, and Eve's from my buddy from Canada, California. I met some people today from Louisiana, and so I'm just overwhelmed. I love you guys, and you know, I don't know, I got so much I want to talk to you about, and I've gone through this crap I'm going to talk to you about. And I've gone through it twice and took out as many pages as I could, and I still got too much crap, you know. And so, you know, I've had a mystery in my life since I left the company in 1990. You know, A.O. Williams did all these remarkable things. You know, fastest growing company in the history of the industry. You know, we changed the largest industry in the United States, and all this crap we did. And you know, since in the last 28 years, nobody has ever tried to duplicate A.O. Williams. Damn this thing to me, you know.
You think, as being an old football coach, if somebody comes out with a better system, you start off with a T formation, and they come up with a wing T, and then you come up with a spread and the shotgun, and the no huddle and the fast track, all this crap. And coaches, you either change and get better or you get beat. But for 28 years, nobody has ever tried to understand and implement the A.O. Williams system. And since I started these videos trying to tell the A.O. Williams story by video, I've had some people that have become good friends tell me, they said, Art, I hear all these stories about how y'all did it at A.O. Williams. And I would love to hear it from the horse's mouth. You tell us exactly how you did it at A.O. Williams. And so for the next 2 days, I'm going to tell you exactly how we did it at A.O. Williams. And since City and Primerica took over A.O. Williams, there's been no A.O. Williams way. Y'all don't do it like A.O. Williams did it. And so, that just blows my mind, So I'm going to tell it to you. And let me get to the story. I'm trying to do something. I got a friend in here that's written 50 books, and he is recognized as the #1 leadership guru in the whole world. And he can write a book and tell it like it is. And I can't do that. I've tried to write 4 or 5 books and tell it how A.O. Williams was, and I just don't have that ability. And, I still don't have a cell phone, and I still don't get on a computer. But about 1.5 years ago, Angela gave me an iPad, and I started looking at the crap on the internet, and it just wipes me out. And a lot of your crap on the internet just wipes me out, And so I went to Matt. Night Glass is the production company that I work with on these videos. And all these started as A.O. Williams kids with A.O. Williams TV. And they've become a pretty big crowd. They do a lot of CNN stuff and Fox News and all that kind of stuff. And I went to Matt Gore, the owner, and Darla, his wife. And I said, Matt, I look at all this stuff on the internet, and I said, somebody that's trying to build a business, they can get so screwed up, it's unbelievable. And I'd like to take the A.O. Williams stuff, which is old and, 30, 40 years old, and I'd like to see if we could break it down in coaching principles in 5 and 6 and 7 minutes of fast, hard-hitting, action coaching principles, and y'all put the music and the graphics behind it, and let's see if that works. And Matt and I did 2 of them, and I said, that's it. I said, I can tell the A.O. Williams story now. I believe this in watching these things every week. Angela, how did you like that crazy, funny chicken shit video? I really believe. Now, I'm not a great reader, and so I have to read something I'm really interested in, then I can read it and get into it and get through with it. But just as a reader, I'm not real good at reading. And I can watch a 5 or 6 minute video, and I can understand more and learn more than I can reading 75 pages. And so if I were out building a team, and if you believed in what I believe in, that you're going to see in the next 2 days, I wouldn't want my guys to get off that internet with all this other stuff and get plugged into something that y'all can talk about at your training programs, and all this stuff, and have everybody on, a team is everybody working, everybody having one heartbeat, right? Everybody on this, just doing the same thing, and that's where you get the multiples working, and that's where you get the explosive growth, right? And so that's what I think we have a chance to do. So anyway, we got Matt and Darla, the owners of Night Glass. We've got Claudia, who's the brains behind the outfit. She's the executive vice president, keeps all of them straight. And then we got the boy genius. Where's old Steve? Oh, here he is. Let me tell you something. This guy is unbelievable. It's harder to cut down. Every 5 or 6 minute video we do, we probably edit that thing I don't know. Ain't no telling. Yeah, 2 or 3 days, you know. It's harder to do that than it is to put out a 45-minute video, you know. And we call this guy the boy genius because he truly is that. And I'm so proud of your work, I can't stand it. Okay, if you will, get out your brochure and look at page 2. You know what we did at A.L. Williams? I mean, I look at this stuff and I just get chills up my spine. I can't believe we did it. What we did at A.L. Williams was absolutely impossible. I look back and say that cannot be done in 13 years. Knowing the craft, it could be done in 13 years. You look at that one dot. We started in Atlanta, Georgia with 85 people. 90% of all life insurance sold was trash value. And you look at the enemy there, 250,000 life insurance agents all over the United States, every town, every city, every village, you know, got one of those jokers, 2,000 active companies, 50 state regulators, all in cahoots trying to put us out of business. Ain't that something to have an enemy like that in this little old peanut here in Atlanta, Georgia? What are the living odds? What are the odds of us competing with those jokers, beating Prudential? Change, it just blows me away. But in 13 years, folks, we had no money. We were only licensed in 13 states. We never paid anybody's moving expenses. We never paid anybody's office expenses. In 13 years, some of you have had organization in 13 years and you're still a peanut, right? Can you imagine in 13 years we have no money to move anybody, no money to pay expenses. And all of a sudden, we're all over the United States, everywhere, every town, every village, every state, in Canada, in Puerto Rico. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? And in 13 years, 90% of all life insurance sold was term insurance. It was over 100-year-old industry. In Canada, Eves, in the 3rd year, I'll talk about more of this later, they became #1, beat London Life, who started in 1875, largest industry in Canada, and we became #1 up there in 3 years. I mean, it's historic. You know, the people that founded this company did something that was just unbelievable. And I'm trying to always use things to you and people I talk to explain to you the magnitude of what those people did. Now look at the next page, page 3. ITT moved me to Atlanta, Georgia in 1971. Folks, I didn't know nobody. I didn't know nobody in Atlanta, Georgia. We moved out to Snellville, suburbs of Atlanta, and we grew to 225,000 people. I didn't know one of those 225,000 people. So we're going to talk about you just got to get the system, and if you get everybody doing the same system, you just let the system grow. And it just does incredible things. I didn't know nobody. None of those 225,000 people I knew when I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. But 1 to 225,000 licensed people is equivalent to 100,000 to 22.5 billion. There's only 7 billion people in the world today, right? Now ain't that something? Ain't that something? You know, a company like y'all talks about growing 10%. You know, increasing. It's sad, ain't it? It's sad. And we grow like 1,000,000%. Ain't that right? It's just the damnedest thing. I can't explain it. I can't believe it. Is that the magnitude of it was just off the charts. Never been done before, never been done since then. Now you think, if somebody was in the financial services business, John, you think somebody would wake up and smell the coffee, right? You think they would say, damn. I mean, look at what those jokers did. They must have something on the ball. I think I want to win, right? I mean, that's, you think all the CEOs out there would be telling me, I want to win, right? I want to kick butt, right? I want to kick Prudential's butt, right? And nobody's done it. Everybody, including you, is doing the same old crap that's been done for 100 years. Look at the next page, page 4. Out of 2,000 companies, 34 of those companies were A.L. Williams companies. That's just beyond unbelief. Our goal, hey, Prudential, we sat down, we'd have a group of 6 of us or 8 of us in the old days, and we'd say, what do we want to do? What do we want to do more than anything in the world? And we all said, who's the most famous company out there? And everybody, of course, realized it was Prudential. They had 40,000 people. You know, they always had that rock floating down the water and all that crap, right? And we said, that's what we want. We want to go after Prudential. See, we have an enemy. We learned that in coaching, right, Bobby? You got to have an enemy. You got to have somebody to play. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? If you don't have somebody to play, to compete against, you just fiddle fart around, wander out there, you know. Ain't that right? A.L. Williams, we had 85 people. We got together and we said, who do we want to get? If we take Prudential down, you want to go after the top dog, right? If you take them down, then everybody else, they say, wow. You know what? You know what? Took us about 3 or 4 years. But you know, you could walk in any office. This to me, you ought to take so much pride on those original 85 people. I'm so proud of them. But you could walk in any office. Just think about this. In New York City, 15 million people. Los Angeles, 3 or 4 million people. Cairo, Georgia, 10,000 people. You walk in any insurance office, anywhere, talk to any agent. Now think 250,000 people. And you mention A.L. Williams, and their face gets red, and they start squirming, right? They know we're out there. Ain't that something? That's what you, right? That's like Bob Turley told me when he was playing with the New York Yankees. They won the American League pennant, I think this is right, Bobby, 23 out of 24 years. Ain't that something? That'll never be done before, right? I mean, we're talking about something that will never be. Bob Buson, we got a hero in. Bobby, stand up and wave to everybody, if you will. Bob. Hey, Bobby Buson's team beat Prudential, not just A.L. Williams, but his team beat Prudential. Ain't that something? You look down that list, all those jokers knew us. They all were scared of us. Ain't that something? A.L. Williams in those 13 years. I can't prove this, but I believe we produced more $100,000 earners. Now today, if you convert that to today's dollars, that's $234,000. More $1 million earners converted to today, that's $2.3 million, than any company in our era. Isn't that something? Isn't that just unbelievable? And then along comes Citigroup. And with Citigroup, with all its brains and with all its Ivy League graduates, they take over this 20-year historic company that grew every year, that changed the largest industry in the world and almost destroyed the company. Took it from 250,000 down to 75,000 in 2 years. Citi cut the heart out of A.L. Williams. The Citigroup, it was all about the money. It was all about the stock price. It was all about the profit. See, at A.L. Williams, winning was capturing the heart. It was capturing the heart. It was building crusaders, and it was always the money second. Citi looked down their nose at people like us, at salespeople. That always amazes me. That amazes me that some of these assholes that graduate from Cornell and Yale and Harvard and places like that, they think their mess don't stink. And they look at salespeople, the most important people in the company. Anybody recognize that has got any common sense, right? I mean, we're out there fighting across the kitchen table, right? We're out there, ain't that right? Punching the enemy in the nose every day, right? We're out there living on commission. You don't sell, you don't eat, right? And those CEOs at Citi, they out there playing golf with some CEOs of other companies with their little club, right? And they're planning their next vacation on their jet. I didn't have a vacation for 12 years. or 13 years, right? So you think the companies would reward the most important people, right? No way, boy. You look at the big companies today like Citigroup, the people that make, and Primerica, the people that make all the money are all the CEOs, all the home office people. And we get all the crumbs. Ain't that right? Well, see, one reason, and this is so obvious to me. I mean, you know, I'm just a football coach with a PE degree. But this is just so obvious to me. When we started A.O. Williams, Bobby, you remember. I mean, we'd be sitting around. The whole company was just like this front row here, you know. And we'd sit around and we said, well, what are we going to do? Our motto is going to be a company where salespeople are king. I'd been in corporate America for 9 years at that time, and I hated corporate America. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I just hate them. And I said, me and my buddies, they said, we want to start a company where salespeople are king. Where salespeople are king. You home office, I brought Bob Busott and Bob Miller into the home office, and one reason I did, because I was traveling 2 or 3 days a week. They were traveling 2 or 3 days a week. I had a meeting every month in A.O. Williams, looking at the home office people like you, Dwayne Morrow, and I'd say, let me tell you something. You jokers ain't got a job unless those guys in the field make sales, right? So you understand they're the most important people. You ain't the most important people. You understand that? You do anything you can do to make their life better, I'm going to fire your ass, right? Because you're indispensable. They ain't indispensable. Ain't that right? Now you know what? You already can tell it. They ain't nobody like me. They ain't nobody like those 85 people. I'm going to tell you about the system, about how we did it. But that ain't the key. That ain't the key. He said it was us. It was how much we loved it. It was how tough we were. It was how hard we fought. It was how much we hated Prudential. It was how much we wanted to destroy trash value. See, you guys ain't like that. You guys ain't like that. You in it to make it money. You're in it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you want to be a half-ass like most other people out there, there's nothing wrong with that. But we wanted to do something monumental. We didn't think we could do it. I went the first 2 years. You've heard this story. You've heard these stories. It's true. The first 2 years I'd go around the company. Can you imagine every recruiting interview I did, every meeting I put on, I said, I want you to understand the odds are like this of us surviving. I'm not talking about being Prudential. I'm not talking about changing an industry. I'm talking about the odds are like this of us surviving, just surviving. That's what my business sense tells me. But I said, I got a feeling. I got a feeling. I got a feeling inside. I don't know why. I hated Waddell and Reed. I hated ITT. And I just got a feeling we're different. I just got a feeling we're going to do something incredible. Hey, Bobby, come up here. I didn't even know you were going to be here until today. I mean, I found it this afternoon. You know, huh? I mean, this wipes me out. I mean, if I was Sandy Wild, and I was going to buy A.O. Williams, which he did, and I was going to kick Art Williams out, which he did, and I was going to replace him, and we got a guy like this. Hey, you know this guy was all SEC basketball player. He built a team that beat Prudential. Now, would you go to some Ivy-er or some Harvard-er? Where did Sandy Wild go? Cornell-er? Or would you go to somebody that's proven? I mean, that's what coaches think, right? I mean, if I had a guy that had beat Prudential by himself, and I was looking for a CEO, you think I would go get some asshole that graduated from, ain't that right? So Bobby, I got you a little t-shirt. The King Stud of Studville. We had a, hey, you know what? You know what? It wasn't just me and Bobby that were studs. That's why we put Studville on there. We had a bunch of studs, didn't we, Bobby? Hey, if you were Sandy Weil and you wanted to find a CEO, wouldn't you go get a Rusty Crossland, a Bill Lorinda, a Larry Waddell, a Bob Turley, a Bob Safford, a Mike Tuttle, a Mike Sharp, a Bob Miller, a Ronnie Barnes, a Randall Walker, a Bill Whittle, a Bill Askew, Bill Whittle, Bill Stewart, Bill Whittle, Neil Askew. I mean, wouldn't you, Bobby? Doesn't that make sense to me? Why would you go get some Yaley that ain't ever done nothing? Why would you do that when you got a whole, you got a whole bench full of proven coaches out there that are ready to be a head coach? That's what I'd do if I was athletic director. Ain't that right? Damnedest thing. I can't understand it. Oh, you can sit down. So after Citigroup destroyed A.O. Williams as we knew it, as we understood it, nobody has ever put the puzzle back together again. But I'm going to show you how to put the puzzle back together again. You know, Citi was so smart. They were so smart that all they did was take the largest bank in the world into bankruptcy. All they did was destroy the retirement program and savings program of hundreds of thousands of people like me. Right? And you know what? None of those assholes are in jail right now. Ain't that something? That is, to me, that is it's like Hillary. I mean, why is she in jail? I'm so sorry you weren't there when we founded A.O. Williams, and I went all over this country to everybody I could find, every big mutual fund company, investment company that I knew anything about that wanted to build a sales force, and none of them would take our business. And you know why? Because they were scared of the regulators. You know, so we had to start with little old financial insurance. I'm so sorry you weren't there when we had to start with this little old company. It had 5 employees in the home office. They had to handwrite checks to the sales force. We didn't have a contract with financial insurance. We didn't have a contract with each other. We operated on a handshake and a person's word. And the financial assurance credit, John, they never reneged until we ran them out of money. And then they gave us time to go find another company. I'm so sorry you weren't there when we had a 20-minute presentation. I went to see, there were, you know, I really told the owner, Joe Jack Merriman of Financial Assurance, it was going to take us 3 or 4 or 5 months to get all of these 85 people, because I knew Waddell & Reed was going to come back and recruit like crap. You know, they came back to Bill Lorinda. They offered him my job, $120,000, like $235, all expenses, 650 people licensed in 5 southeastern states in insurance and securities. Ain't that something? And I couldn't even offer him an RVP position. I had to offer him a division manager contract, but I said, just trust me, Bill, just trust me. Somehow, we probably ain't going to do it, but So I went to see Rusty. Rusty was a hero in Waddell & Reed. In fact, they hated A.O. Williams, Waddell & Reed, the national sales director did. That's another thing that blows me. How can you hate we started, there were 13 regions in Waddell & Reed, and 3 years later, we beat all the other 12 combined. Now, how can you hate somebody like that? But they hated the way we did business. I don't know what it is, Bobby, about the way y'all did business that people just hate in this industry, right? But they're all the Yaleys in the, right? Because we're fierce, right? Y'all ain't ever seen nothing like this at a Primerica meeting, right? Right? And this is the way we were every day. Every day. But anyway, Rusty Crossland, they hated A.O. Williams, even my own company, whatever read. And they took Rusty, one of our all-stars, and they opened him an office, and they gave him money to recruit salespeople full-time and give them salaries. And they were going to prove to Art Williams and Bob Buson and the rest of these guys that their way was the best way, right? And so they made Rusty a hero. Well, I knew it was going to take me a time. I knew Rusty was loyal to us, and I was going to get him, but I thought it was going to take 2 or 3 months. I had a 20-minute presentation, and I would go to each person's house. I'd get home about 10 o'clock at night. I'd have 15 emergency telephone calls. Call me anytime, just, you know. So I didn't have but 20 minutes to give somebody and tell them what we were going to do. We were going to leave Waddell and Reed. And Bob Buson making $100,000 a year, all his expenses paid. 20 minutes to tell him what we're going to do. And so I go show up at Rusty and Teresa's house, go up in Marietta, Georgia. And I go up there and I tell him my 20-minute story, what we going to do. Rusty Crossland looked me in the eye and he said, I'm in. It tore me up. It was one of the few times, and now I cry all the time, but I mean, it was one of the times I cried. I went back to my car and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was going to take us 2 or 3 months to get Rusty. I thought it was going to take us 2 or 3 months to get Bill Lorinda. I'm sorry you weren't there when it took, when for the first 4.5 years I was in this business, you had to get an insurance license and a securities license before you could sell. How about that? Y'all can't get anybody insurance licensed. Can you imagine how many securities licensed people y'all would have in this company now? If you had to get both of them licensed, Eve? Right? I'm so sorry you weren't there when my second year, this got to be serious business to me. You know, in 2.5 years part-time, this old dumb South Georgia football coach with a PE degree, making $10,000 a year, I made over, if you convert it to today's dollars, $291,000. Save that. My folks didn't have any money. Angela had $1,000 in our savings account when I started in this business. Is that an unbelievable part-time opportunity? At my second year, I was saving serious money. We were saving serious money, $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year extra income. We were living off my $10,000 coaching salary. And I get a letter from the Georgia Insurance Department, and it orders me to come to the insurance department. I go up there, meet Richard Kane. He's assistant insurance commissioner. And he says, Mr. Williams, I got a letter here that you replaced a cash value policy with term. What you got to say about that? I said, well, that's right. I did. And let me tell you why I did it. Well, you know, when you got an insurance license back then, you had to check off a block. You understand, if you replace a cash value policy with term, that's called twisting. You lose your license. You had to check that. You had to check it. If you replace a term policy with cash value, that's called conversion. That's good. Check, right? So I'm sitting there with Richard Kane. I said, look, that's right. That's right. I just gave that person $150,000 for the same thing they were paying for $15,000. Now tell me that's bad. Tell me that's bad. Okay? And you know what? You know what? 8 years later, Richard Kane became the first person in A.O. Williams' compliance department. Now, hey, we're talking about some historic stuff. Is that unbelievable? Hey, I wish you were there. Bobby Buson went with me, and Kevin King. Johnny Caldwell calls me down to he's the insurance commissioner in Georgia, a lawyer. And he calls us down. Bobby's with me. Kevin King, our lawyer's with me. Johnny Caldwell looks over the desk and says, Art, you're a crook. I'm going to put you out of business. They really thought we were stealing the cash value. They didn't know nothing. The regulators didn't know. They just like the regulators in Washington, the politicians. They don't know nothing. They don't. They're politicians. They say whatever they got to say to get a vote, right? The regulators all, right? And so anyway, they subpoena 85 of us. Is that unbelievable? For replacing trash value with term, which anybody knows is better. But you know what? You know what? About 6 or 7 years later, we start the AOE's public company, and Johnny Caldwell was a good man. He just didn't know. He came on our board of directors. That's historic stuff. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? When you took an insurance, to get an insurance license, you know, we might be here a long time. I told old Matt today, I said, I'm trying to cut this thing down. But I didn't want to make it boring to you. But anyway, now, when you got an insurance license, you had to put your cash value hat on. You had to say dividends are good. That's like buying stock in the company, which is the biggest lie in the world, right? That cash value is permanent, lie. Temporary is temporary, lie. Best kind of investment is an endowment policy, which is a lie. But you had to, right? All that kind of crap. You know what we did. See, we knew how to fight. Sometimes there's a line, and you have to cross that line and operate in a little gray area, you know. Well, see, I allowed that. I mean, that's the way you play football, right? I mean, right? Somebody like that guy right there, the meanest guy I know. I just know he's going to get a 15-yard penalty. But that's okay. That sends a message. That sends a message to those folks in the wrong colored jerseys, right? So they're always changing the test, trying to make it hard for us to pass. And so what we'd do is we'd send 60 people in to take the test. There's 60 questions. And we'd say, okay, you remember number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And so we'd have the test done, you know, for the next 6 or 7 months or a year so they could rechange it, right? That's pretty dirty, right? Now, I guarantee you, Prudential didn't, I'm so sorry you weren't there when hey, Matt, can I write on this thing? I'm so sorry you weren't there when the RVP, like Bobby, we had 4 levels on the computer: RVP, division leader, district leader, sales leader, and rep. I think that's right. And when they'd make a sale, we had to figure our own commissions. Can you imagine an insurance company lets you figure out your own commissions, right? And so the RVP, Rob Bobby, said out, okay, I made $81, $120, $73, $46, $50. He'd fill that little thing out. He'd staple that onto an app, and he'd send it to Minneapolis. And they'd sit there and handwrite a check. Ain't that something? I'm so sorry y'all got instant issue and computer checks and all that. Ain't that something, Eves? Ain't that something? See, that's like going to war. You know, when you get in that foxhole in a war, that's where you bond, right? Y'all don't really care about each other. Man, we were in a war. They were trying to put us out of business. Man, we cared about each other. We loved each other. We depended on each other. I'm so sad you weren't there. You know, to really get big, you got to do 3 things. You got to, let's see if I can think of them. Number 1, you got to have no limits. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a minute. And number 2, you got to be able to simplify and transfer. You know, when you're growing like us, not like you got to put a different cap on, right? Because y'all don't grow, right? I mean, but when you grow like us, you know, you got to be able to simplify and be able to transfer your message out there, right? If you're going to continue, and then you got to be able to multiply. See, it's hard to relate to somebody that don't know what you're talking about. You know, I mean, we're talking like a foreign language. I understand that, okay? But anyway, let me just give you an example. I hadn't done this in a year or 2, but once you get this stuff ingrained, you just don't forget it. See, we didn't have no presentation. We didn't have no pretty pictures, any brochures. All we had was a piece of typing paper or a scratch pad. But you know what? You know, Angela is a great artist. I mean, that to me is the most amazing talent. If somebody take a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and some watercolors or something, and paint a portrait of somebody, or paint a picture of a tree. That's the damnedest thing, because I can't do nothing, you know. But I can paint a picture about trash value life insurance like you can't believe. We came up, let me show it to you. I ain't done this in years now. Let me show it to you. Okay, we had a concept today. That's the way we gave a presentation. See, and you know how long it takes you to learn this stuff? Maybe 7 minutes. 7 minutes. You got to simplify it, right? Okay, so anyway, we came up with a concept today at Williams called split funding. And let's say you got $100 to pay for your insurance and savings program. You can go buy a trash value policy, and hey, wait, you don't have to write anything down. It's right in your, hey, look in your booklet. Yeah, you know it's an extra set page. Okay, get it out. There's an extra page. All right, you pay for 2 things, but you only get one. Now just see how brilliant this is. Now see, that the client understands that language. Ain't that right? You pay for 2 things, you only get one. So with any kind of cash value policy, I don't care what we call a whole life endowment, 20-pay life, it don't matter, okay? If you pay $100, you get 2 things. If you get, let's say, a $100,000 life insurance policy, and true to their word, anytime you die, they're going to pay you $100,000. But you also get a cash value program, a great savings program, right? The first year, you make nothing. The Federal Trade Commission said after 20 years, you get 1.2%. If you want to borrow, think how brilliant this is. Some actuary at Prudential figured out this deal, okay? They got a savings program that if you want your money, they charge you to borrow your own money. They charge you 7% to borrow your own money. And listen to this brilliant thing, right? If you die, you lose it. What kind of savings program is that? Okay, so if you figure a whole life policy, your cash value is worth about 50% of the face amount, $50,000. Now, we came up with a better way. We call ours buy term and invest the difference. We separate your insurance and investment. You pay for 2 things and you get 2. So with $100, you put $20 into a life insurance program, and we give you a $100,000 policy, and just like Prudential, anytime you die, you get $100,000. Ain't that something? But then you put $80 into a mutual fund. Hey, you know what? When I was coaching, putting $50 a month or $100 a month in my teacher's credit union, making 2%, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a mutual fund. That you could put $100 or $50 in something, and you could have professional money managers manage your money. You could have research departments figuring out who's screwing you, like Citigroup and all these other good companies out there, right? Ain't that something? And so we took $80, didn't have an IRA back then. And so if you take any 10-year period of time, they average 10%. You pay nothing to borrow your own money. You want your money, you just write to the company and tell them to send you your own money, right? And instead of having, then later on when you get an IRA, then you get to write it off your taxes. You know what that means? Do y'all sell IRAs out there? Okay, if you make $50,000 and you put $5,000 into an IRA, then you only pay tax on $45,000. That's a pretty good deal, right? Hey, you know what? You know what? The only investment in the world that doesn't qualify for an IRA is trash value life insurance. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? I mean, I loved it more than I can tell you. Just, and then you know what else? It accumulates tax deferred. It accumulates tax deferred. Okay, so anyway, so then you're going to add another 20% or 30% or 15% onto your, ain't that right? Right? And so instead of having $50,000, you're going to have $325,000. Now, I do a little summary down here. You got it on your page, right? You got it down there. I ain't got to go over that. But, hey, is that brilliant? Now, don't clap. Don't clap. Is that brilliant? Is that better than what y'all use at Primerica? Is that what you call yourself? Is that brilliant? Is that unbelievable? See, if you go win, build an empire like beat Prudential, like Bobby did, you've got to have the ability to simplify and transfer Right? That's what we did. See, I learned that coaching. You know what? When I got my first head coaching job, I was supposed to be an offensive whiz-bang guy. And I had a playbook about this thick. And I had a manager. I called every play, my 5 years as a head coach. And I had a manager tag along with me, and he'd put down the down at 1st and 10 and the play that I'd run. And I got home after my first game studying the plays I called. I said, wow. You're supposed to let me know when I've been here an hour? Okay, and I ain't even got started. I ain't even got hardly into my presentation, you know. But anyway, I got home and I started looking at those. I said, golly, Pete, I only run 4, 5, or 6 plays. And I got 40 plays that I'm practicing. That ain't too smart, right? And so what I did, for you non-football people, is I said, wow. So I started practicing the plays I run. And what I did is I got my play was fullback over strong tackle. I had a stud here that was defensive captain of the Georgia team. He'd kill that tackle. I had a stud here that would kill that defensive end. I had a triple stud here at the University of Georgia. And I'd run fullback over strong tackle. And then what I'd do is I'd watch this linebacker here. And if he started inching over here, then I'd run a trap back here. And then if the outside linebacker started moving up, then what I'd do is I'd run fullback over strong tackle pass, flip that guy out in the flat. Or then I'd run a bootleg. I had 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 different things I did. And what I did, this was so, I mean, I don't want y'all to think I'm a genius, but in this business, I'm a genius. You understand? I'm a genius. Now look, so what I did is I would go out and I would get in this set and I'd run fullback over strong tackle, okay? And then so what I did to confuse the defense is I would just change the formation. I'd put the wide receiver from here out here and I'd still run fullback over strong tackle. Or I would move this guy in here, right? And I'd have about 20 different formations. But I was running the same old crap. But nobody ever figured that out in my 5 years as head coach. I'm so sorry you weren't here when Art DeMoss died. And that was the second company we were with at National Home Life. And Bob Safford was National Sales Director, trying to build a sales force at National Home Life. And so we all had to disband and we had to go to PennCorp. And Bob Safford told me, he said, Art, he said, I'm going to take a year off and I'm just going to study and think about what I want to do with my life. So about a year later, I get a call from Bob and he says, Art, I've looked at everything out there and I think A.O. Williams is the best thing out there. I want to come to A.O. Williams. And I said, Bob, we got a problem. He lived in Pennsylvania. I said, we're not licensed in Pennsylvania. And he said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, I don't know. But there's Ohio. We're licensed in Ohio. So Bob starts building a base shop in Ohio. Ain't that something? And he built an empire. Now, some of you, y'all don't know what problems are, right? I'm so sorry you weren't there when Mississippi kicked us out of business for 2 weeks. Headlining every paper in Mississippi. A.O. Williams kicked out of the state. Took us 2 weeks to get back in, but by that time, everybody in all 50 states and Canada and Puerto Rico knew we were kicked out of Mississippi. They used that against us for years, right? I'm so sorry you weren't there when Texas passed a law, the Texas Insurance Department, where you couldn't license but 350 people in 1 year. There was only one company that licensed over 350 people. That was A.O. Williams. I'm so sorry you weren't there when we were kicked out of Tennessee. Can you believe that? For replacing our trash value policy return for 2 weeks. We got back in, but by that time, every 250,000 agents had they had a stack about that thick of crap to use against us. I'm so sorry you weren't there when I was at a fast start school in Atlanta, Georgia. Get a call the 8th month from Joe Jack Merriman, the owner of Financial Insurance, said, Art, we're out of money. We're out of money. We can't go on. I'm so sorry you weren't there when for 4.5 years where we had no advances. We were paid as earned. You know that $291,000 equivalent that I saved? See, we did that as earned. You know, if y'all go out and you get a $150 commission, let's say you're selling a $150,000 term program, you get a $150 commission, no, $200. You're going to get 75% of that. You're going to get a check immediately, right, for $150. Well, we got a check on issue. Now, back then, when you sold a $100,000 policy back in the 60s, that was like selling $1 million policy. You had to get a blood test. I was in Nantucket last week, and I had to go get some blood for a reason. And so anyway, I swear, you give me any kind of surgery you want. I've had open heart surgery. I had a partial knee replacement. But I hate that IV. I did. When they stick that IV, I don't know why it is. You know, I just hate that more than any kind of operation you can perform on me, right? Put me to sleep and do whatever you want to do, right? But just that getting that blood. Well, anytime we sold a $100,000 policy, they had to give blood. They had to take off a day's work, ain't that something, right? And so it took 2.5 months to get policies issued back then, 3 months to get a policy issue. And so y'all get an immediate check for $150. Back then, we would have to take 2 or 3 months to get a policy issued, and then you'd get paid the 4th month, and we'd get $12.50. But you would get it for 12 months. But you know what? I saved $291,000. I'm so sorry you weren't there when the state of, this is hard to believe, I'm sorry you weren't there when the state of Washington passed a law that the House of Representatives and the Senate passed a law that if you replaced a whole life policy with term, you couldn't pay commissions on a term. The governor vetoed it. Ain't that something? I'm so sorry you weren't there when Puerto Rico passed a law that you couldn't recruit part-timers that worked for the government. That's 25% of the workforce down there. Ain't that something? I'm so sorry you weren't there when Georgia tried to outlaw our product. Bob Turley, Bo Adams and I went to a hotel in Atlanta, a room. We met with 2 or 3 politicians, and we go through our spiel and all that kind of stuff. And this guy says, Art, that's no problem. Come up with $10,000 or $15,000 and we can get that taken care of. I hate politicians almost as much as I hate Prudential. And I told him, I said, look, we ain't got the money to compete with those folks out there, you know. If we got to win that way, then I might as well go back and coach. I'm so sorry you weren't there when Georgia was trying to outlaw our product deposit term at that time, and we were so desperate, we were all panicky. And I got an appointment with the governor, and they gave me 15 minutes to present my case. I'm so sorry you weren't there when we had so many administrative problems you wouldn't believe, and we'd have our home office would take 6 bank drafts out in 1 month and crash a guy's whole account. And then they'd come screaming to you, call them screaming at the home office, and then next month they wouldn't take nothing out. Then the next month they'd take 3 out. And the next month they'd take 1 out. And the next month they'd take 10 out. Right? I'm so sorry you weren't there when we were making on mutual funds, we were making, if you sold a $100 a month Destiny plan, Bobby, you remember that? You got a check for $300. Pretty good, right? They passed a law where that was cut to $8.50. Pretty big cut, right? But you know what? We cried a little bit. We were upset, but we survived. We survived to fight another day, right? I'm so sorry you weren't there. Well, hey, this is unbelievable. I think it's the only time it's ever been done in the history of business in the United States. But do you know the insurance commissioners got together and they passed a law that before we could replace it, this was for 2 years now, before you could replace a cash value policy, you had to pick up the policy. At that time, we had to send it to Kansas City Policy Analysis, and they lost about 10 or 20% of them. So how would you like to go pick up a person's policy, and you have to go back and say, I'm sorry to tell you. But your policies just disappeared. I don't know where they disappeared. They just disappeared. But anyway, we had to pick up the policy, send it to Kansas City Policy Analysis to analyze it. We had to wait 2 weeks before we could go back to make the sale. We had to send the proposal, what we were selling them, to Prudential, to the enemy, tell them what we were selling them. Is that unbelievable? I don't believe it's ever been done before in the history of business in the United States. I'm so sorry you weren't there when North Carolina sent one of their agents, Barry Claus, to Atlanta, Georgia. He spent 3 months investigating, pulling every out, trying to find out why we were screwing people. And you know what? A few years later, Barry Claus came to work with A.L. Williams in our bed market. I'm so sorry you were not there when 30 states investigated us for being a pyramid. They thought we were a pyramid. I'm so sorry you weren't there when California investigated us for being a cult. I'm so sorry you weren't there when Kansas Insurance Department ordered me to come out to Kansas. And Barbara King, Kevin King, and I go out there, and that insurance commission said, Art, I'm so tired of all this bickering and fighting and crap that's going on out there. I want you to join the National Association of Life Underwriters. And I looked him across the table, and I said, Mr. So-and-so, it's going to get worse. You understand? That's the enemy. I ain't joined it. You ought to outlaw those jokers. You understand? If you were doing your job, you wouldn't allow trash van insurance to be sold. I'm so sorry you weren't there when you'd wake up and your tires would be slashed, your mailbox would be knocked over, your kids at school would be made fun of, saying your daddy's a crook. I'm so sad you weren't there when the headline in your local paper said A.L. Williams is under investigation. Your phone rings and said, I'm going to kill you. I'm so sorry you weren't there when the Federal Trade Commission came out with a 10-year study, and every headline in every paper in the United States and Canada, I'm sure, Eve, said the average return on a cash value policy was 1.2% in 20 years. That was the first death blow. And the final death blow came when the Senate and the House passed a law and President Reagan signed it that came up with IRA legislation. I'm so glad I was there. Hey, you know what? You ought to be so thankful for those original people. They had to recruit, they had to field train, they had to license their people, they had to sell, they had to make money, they had to pay their own expenses, they had to promote their people, they had to save money, they had to fight the regulators, fight the cash value scum-sucking dog. They had to, everybody trying to run us out of business. But I'm so glad I was there. I'm so glad I was there, being challenged over and over and over again, but just sucking it up. I wouldn't take anything for being there.